Hey everyone, and welcome. If you're an Etsy seller, you know that looking at your payment account can sometimes feel like trying to solve a tricky puzzle. Well, today we're going to break down one specific piece of that puzzle, value-added tax, or VAT, on your seller fees. I promise by the end of this, it's all going to make a lot more sense.
So you're looking at your statement, right? And you see this little extra charge pop up, labeled VAT or maybe GST. And you're thinking, wait, what is this? Why are they charging me for this? Trust me, you are not alone, and we are about to clear it all up.
Okay, first things first, we need to get one thing straight. There are actually two different kinds of VAT you'll see on Etsy. There's the VAT that your buyers pay when they purchase your products. We are not talking about that today. What we are focusing on is the VAT that you, the seller, pay on the services Etsy provides you, for things like your listing fees and transaction fees. That's our target.
So what even is VAT? Well, in a nutshell, it's a tax on stuff people buy, goods and services. Now, depending on where you are in the world, you might know it by a different name, like GST in Australia or HST in parts of Canada. The name changes, but the idea? It's pretty much the same everywhere.
This brings us to the single most important concept you need to grasp to understand this whole thing. It really all boils down to one simple question. Have you given Etsy your VAT ID?
Okay, let's break this down because this is the core of it all. Look at the left side. If you're a seller in the UK and you don't have a VAT ID on file with Etsy, they're required by law to charge you VAT. So on £100 worth of fees, they'll add that 20% VAT, and you end up paying £120. Now look at the right. If you do give them a valid VAT ID, boom, Etsy doesn't add that charge. Instead, you're responsible for handling it on your own tax return through something called a reverse charge. The bottom line? That little ID number makes a huge difference.
And hey, this isn't just a UK thing, not by a long shot. This rule applies in a whole bunch of countries. As you can see, we're talking about most of the European Union, Australia, India, New Zealand, the list goes on. Take a quick look, see if your country's on here. Of course, just when you think you've got it all figured out, there's always a but, right? So while that main VAT ID rule covers most sellers, there are a few key countries where things work a little differently. Let's look at the exceptions. And here's the big exception. For sellers in a select group of countries, it doesn't matter if you have a VAT ID on file or not. Etsy is legally obligated to charge VAT on your seller fees, period. That charge is going to show up no matter what. So who's in this club? Well, if you're a seller in Ireland, Japan, Switzerland, Mexico, or any of these other places you see right here, you can expect to be charged VAT on your fees, regardless of your registration status. Let's make this crystal clear with an example. An Irish seller, even one who has their VAT ID on file with Etsy, is still going to get charged the standard 23% Irish VAT on their fees. This isn't an Etsy rule, it's a local tax law that Etsy is legally required to follow. There's just no way around it. Now, let's talk about a really special case, Canada. Canada's system is, well, it's a bit of a different animal. It's more complex because they have both federal and provincial sales taxes. So instead of a single VAT rate, Etsy charges GST, HST, PST, or QST, and it all depends on which province you, the seller, are operating from. For instance, if you're an Etsy seller based in Ontario, you're going to see a 13% harmonized sales tax, or HST, on your fees. That means for every 100 Canadian dollars in fees, there's going to be an extra $13 charge for HST.
All right, that's a lot of rules, I know, but the big question now is, how do you keep track of all this for your own books? You're counting, right? Well, the good news is, Etsy actually makes this part pretty painless. Which brings us to probably the number one question sellers ask. That's all fine, but where's my invoice? And that's a totally fair question. As a business owner, you absolutely need that paper trail.
And the answer is yes, absolutely. Like clockwork, on the first of every single month, Etsy generates a nice, clean, downloadable PDF invoice for you. It covers all the seller fees from the month that just ended. And finding it is super easy. Seriously, just hop on your computer. You got to do it on a desktop, not the app. Go to your shop manager, then click on your payment account. From there, you just pick the month you need and you'll see the option to download VAT invoice. A few clicks and you're done. Okay, but what about refunds? That's a great question because it happens, right? Let's say you make a sale in June and Etsy charges VAT on that transaction fee. Then, in July, you have to cancel the order. Etsy doesn't go back in time and edit your June statement. Instead, they just issue a VAT credit on your July invoice. See? It all balances out in the end.
Phew!
Okay, we have covered a ton of ground, so let's do a quick fire recap, a final checklist, just to make sure all the most important points really stick. All right, here are the top 5 things to remember. First, yes, Etsy might charge VAT or GST on your seller fees. Second, and this is the big one, the rules are all about your country and whether you have a VAT ID on file. Third, remember that you get a monthly invoice to keep your records straight. 4, in some countries, you're always going to be charged VAT, no exceptions. And finally, number 5, if you issue a refund, you'll get a credit for the VAT on your next invoice. And we're going to end on the most important takeaway of all. Seriously, look, what we've done here is help you understand how Etsy's system works. But, and this is a big but, this is not tax advice. Every seller's business is unique. For specific questions about what you owe and why, you should always, always, always consult a certified tax professional or your local tax authority. Thanks so much for joining me.